There it is. Perfect. Nice grab. Saw doing a little bit of everything. All right. Good evening. Welcome.
As previously stated, there is a staff report for the Darlford property with conditions that state interior or exterior site alterations must comply with the Minnesota State Accessibility Code, Chapter 1341. From Chapter 1341, it states 502-7, identification, accessible parking spaces shall be identified by signs complying with Minnesota statutes, Section 169.346. 169.346, disability parking areas criteria enforcement. Subdivision 1, disability parking space prohibitions. A person shall not, and again, said this, park a motor vehicle in or obstruct access to a parking space or associated access aisle designated as and reserved for the physically disabled on either private or public property. Email from the ADA director of the state of Minnesota states, quote, disability parking can't be used for bus pickup, unquote. The ADA director was also, quote, curious how their building permits were signed off. And the permits should not have been, because the disability parking is being used for bus pickup and that is not compliant with the state statute. The ADA director also states, quote, there is no entity, city or otherwise, that can sanction any obstruction short of emergency use. There is no designing disability parking for multiple uses, unquote. ADA director also states, quote, it comes down to folks not understanding the importance or not caring about disability parking, unquote. Mayor, the Darlford property is not compliant with the state statute. There is, again, quote, there is no entity, city or otherwise, that can sanction any obstruction short of emergency use. There is no designing disability parking for multiple uses, unquote. The Darlford property has located the disability parking where the buses pick up, which is a multiple use against the state statute. I would like to know why planning and or engineering signed off on a parking lot that is not compliant with state statute. I would also like to know why planning and or engineering is not addressing the Darlford property non-compliance to the state statute. I would also like to know what other state statutes the city is not requiring compliance to.
Well, I don't know why planning. I don't have the planning documents in front of me. I don't know the decisions they made. I don't know the discussion that went on in the staff meetings. I just don't know. And we have talked about this in the past, that we've assigned this to Police Chief Booker Hodges to deal with, and I know the police chief is in conversation with the ADA director, the state ADA director, and Dar Al Farouk to work out a solution to this. Mr. Verbrugge, do you have any update on this?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I do not have an update.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where we stand. It's the same
again
as we were last time.
This isn't a police matter. This is the city planning. It's having the Dar Al Farouk presenting a plan. The plan is, according to ADA, with the parking being designated on the south end, and then it being constructed with the...
And I have no idea why the plans changed. At some point, they changed. I have no idea why. I don't know why.
And I've been...
What you keep bringing forward now is your concern about the bus perhaps blocking that, blocking the handicap parking. That, in my mind, is a public safety or police issue, which is why we've asked Chief Hodges to look into it.
But again, it is a planning and engineering concern because it shouldn't have been constructed that way. If I went and built something incorrect on my property, the city makes you change it. And I could bring up examples if you want to know them. I mean, I don't know how many recall the person who built the swing set in their front yard because their child was disabled and the fence was too high. And they understood the city had allowed them to do it. And then the city said, no, you can't have it that high, and they had to take it down. I know of people in my neighborhood who have, made some construction that the city comes out and says, that's not according to the plan, or that's not city code compliant, and have had to change it. And so again, this isn't a police issue. It is a planning and engineering. This should have,
And I have no idea if it was a change in the plans. If it's currently code compliant, somebody putting, a fence too high, that's a code violation. That's a code compliance thing. That's one thing. A plan alteration happens all the time, Sally.
And-
Happens all the time.
this is two things. The conditions of the property say that they have to be compliant with the state statute. And then just in general, you have to be compliant with the state statute. As the AD director says, you can't, vary from that. There isn't.
So a state statute is a state law. The people who enforce the laws are the police. That's why I've asked Chief Hodges to take a look into this, and he's working with the ADA director and with Dar Al-Farouk to come to an agreement on this. Did you have a comment or a question?
Clarification,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. I don't understand how planning and engineering violated something, I guess.
I don't either, to be honest.
Because the fact that there are enough handicap parking spaces and that they're located where they are is probably fine. It's not until the accusation that they're being blocked by buses that we end up in a conflict. Am I correct on that?
That would be my assumption. Yes.
As the email from the ADA director saying clearly that you can't have multiple uses for disability parking.
That's not my question. I don't think there's any code related to pickup or drop off of buses that we can point to. All you're saying is you believe that the buses that come to Dar Al-Farouk block handicap parking for a period of time every day, and that's what you're suggesting is not in compliance with state code. And to the mayor's point, if that's true, then the law enforcement individuals who have to enforce that code need to be involved to correct it.
The plan that they provided shows that's where the buses pick up and drop off. So it was the bus pickup and drop off in front of the building. Clearly the bus pickup and drop off, and they're supposed to be next to the curb. They're not supposed to be far away, which does become a hazard issue.
You know way more than I do.
Well, I gave you guys all pictures. You guys,
But no, you keep saying they're supposed to.
The plan
saying, I don't
shows-
know that they're.
okay, but I showed you the plans. I gave everyone a copy of the plans. It shows the buses right up to the
Aren't
curb.
those plans like 13 years old?
No, those are when it was changed, the charter school change, when it became the charter
When
school.
was that?
13 years ago?
Yeah, 2011. Right?
No, charter school. They originally planned a private school, and then they never opened a private school. And then they did the work to start a charter school, said they were only going to have 60, but they ended up having 83. And then the city does the city code change after they have the 83 in there. So yeah, that was recent. That was more recent. It wasn't 2011. But anyway, again, there's a parking plan that shows the buses there, and so multiple uses. If you show the buses are picking up there, you don't go and construct the disability parking there. The state statute doesn't allow multiple uses.
How long have you noticed that they've been picking up at that location?
Yes,
Years now? Or
which Jenna had made a comment to before, and as I mentioned before, when I tried to address this previously, I'm in my neighbor's driveway.
Well, that's
legally.
Not the important part.
It is important.
No.
I'm legally. It's why I'm not bringing it up.
Time.
It's why I'm not bringing it up.
We're bumping up against time, and I'll tell you, as I told you the last few times we talked about this, Chief Hodges is working with the state ADA compliance director and Dar Al-Farouk to come to a resolution on this, and that's the same as it was the last time we talked, Sally.
And again, this is my question, and which I'd asked before, is I want to know where engineering and planning, why is it? I would like to know why planning and engineering signed off on this. And so did the ADA director. He wanted to know, how did they sign off on
And I'm
this?
sure I will ask Chief Hodges to bring that up with the ADA director, and we'll see if they can.
And again,
Discussion.
it should be
Sally.
engineering, and it doesn't
Thank
make sense.
Thank you. Mr. Hallett. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you.
You state your name for the record, so we have it officially, please.
Sure, Matthew Hallett, Oh, I don't have a lot of time. I've got a lot of information to get through, so I'll do this as best I can. I've lived close enough to walk within 9 Mile for nearly a decade. I am also engaged in habitat restoration throughout the city, and we'll be talking about how the bike trails amplify that effort. I have 61 citations in very little time, so feel free to make a copy of this transcript publicly available. In 2021, to the dismay of Indigenous groups fighting Enbridge, Line 3 just downstream of Lake Itasca nearly had a breach. They remember that in 1991, the old line ruptured and caused the largest inland oil spill in history. Bloomington gets 30% of its drinking water from the Mississippi. We are directly affected by the downstream effects of our environment, which is why I am utterly baffled by 4 claims made on April 15th by a conservation and environmental biologist representing the group Restore the Nine about the bike path. Claim 1. Bike paths increase erosion and scare away wildlife. The biggest factors for erosion are the trail's design, construction, and maintenance. On maintained pathways, the difference is negligible, and when poorly maintained, hikers can cause more erosion. Hikers have been observed to be 10 times more likely to scare wildlife, all while everyone blamed others and blamed their own groups less, further suggesting that the paths work best when not shared. Claim 2, widening the trail would result in habitat loss and increase the heat effect. The environmental analysis is certain to see much of what I saw when I walked through 9 Mile recently. A widened trail is not an issue for habitat loss. Turf grass lines most of the trail that is further riddled with at least 5 species of invasives. Many trees in the way are already dying. We can move smaller natives like bloodroot, especially with the strengthening partnership of volunteers who are already instrumental in giving the city a gentler hand than machines. We can do significantly better than asphalt. There are biological geotextiles for erosion, wood resin for soil stabilization, wood ash for the subgrade, and stone source from the local Burnsbrook quarry. We know that wise native plant choices not only can provide shade, but can also mitigate heat laterally. Holistically, we can arrive at an even higher result, or healthier result, than what we started with, because half the park is already paved and covered in turf grass. Claim number 3, unfulfilled promises like the restoration of trout. One of 9 Mile's 3 impairments was delisted in 2010 by working with nature rather than against it. With the help from the city, volunteers are actively continuing that effort by helping to restore one of the rarest biomes in the world, the oak savanna. Since native landscaping was decriminalized last year, tearing out turf grass absolutely dwarfs the restoration potential of 9 Mile. We already know why the trout no longer exist in 9 Mile. Beneath roaring jet airplanes, 800 feet from the Mall of America, an unmarked stream colloquially known as Ike's Creek flows into the National Wildlife Refuge, where one would also be shocked to find trout. The major difference between Ike's Creek and 9 Mile, Bloomington's decision to direct its stormwater pipes away. Claim number 4, Leopold's quote, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity. It is wrong when it comes otherwise," as well as little cuts, not big projects, cause the greatest environmental degradation. Leopold himself counters how this claim was used. Quote, "One of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. Much of the damage inflicted on land is quite invisible to laymen. An ecologist must either harden their shell and make believe that the consequences of science are none of their business, or that they must be the doctor who sees the marks of death in a community that believes itself well and does not wish to be told otherwise. It is therefore a jaw-dropping omission of facts as to how we lost nearly 5 million acres of oak savanna, and that 9 Miles spans 15 miles, and that the park itself is the last mile, while at the same time acknowledging water impairment. Small cuts and bike paths did not get us here. It was how we developed our city. Upstream of Moore Park, to the border of Bloomington, there are 9 culverts the creek must flow while gathering runoff from almost an entire zip code. Hundreds of thousands of vehicles a day cross over the creek, and its runoff overwhelms our wetlands. Although we have learned much about habitat fragmentation since 1933, Leopold was a pioneer of the concept. He would likely agree that in terms of wounds, the wildlife corridor of 9 Mile is a leg that has 9 tourniquets, and the bike path could be a stent through them. The mark of death is visible in 9 Mile. Woodpeckers strip the bark off of ash trees infested with emerald ash borer. Their bark looks like vitiligo. 99% will die without early treatment. The scale of habitat destruction of what the public will soon witness in the lower 9 Mile alone will despair those who did not wish to be told otherwise. We can do better. We should not only create a bike path in 9 Mile, but extend it beyond Moore Park through all 9 crossings and connect it with the regional trail in Edina. First Nations who have been here, possibly even before the founding of Rome, lived at the location where 9 Mile Creek meets the Minnesota River. They were the stewards of this land, and no evidence suggests that their actions, including war, led to anything even close to how we have treated it in 200 years. Nothing at 9 Mile even acknowledges them. The least we could do is dedicate the trailhead. We know now that the removal of wildlife since their time allowed ash and elm to replace the primordial oaks. To what era and mistakes are we repeating by restoring ash trees? We can do better. Almost all of our neighboring cities and beyond to Hopkins would immediately be linked by this bike path. Bikes connect the community directly into nature from further away. Educate us, and as demonstrated by the cities such as Luverne and Minneapolis, can evolve space near these connections into food forests to combat food deserts. We can do better. We could benefit almost every Bloomington student west of 35W. Their schools, homes, and places they want to be, like the ice arena, would connect to this trail. By significantly reducing or even eliminating the amount of road crossings, we save lives. This reinforces ridership instead of driving, reduces pollution, and massively benefits riders, even if they don't even get out their car. This is not a small ask, but know that Edina went through nearly all of this and offered to add to the corridor and screen residents. They had similar angst about going through 243 backyards as close as 25 feet from away from 3 homes, explaining that homeowners' property values would increase as much as 15% without increasing crime. I'm sure went a long way. Finally, it seems we all agree that the plans to increase accessibility a trail graded for bike transit would bring. Some would still be against the bikes. Please use what has been demonstrated today to alleviate fears as we work towards our common goal of restoration. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Also, time for about one question or so. Anybody?
I have thousands.
I'm sure.
Can you email us that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy with that.
Thanks for coming in today.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.
You have a copy of that.
Not a paper one, but I can email you anything you want.
Good, that'd be great.
So,
Good evening.
Andy Thule here. I saw a story in Bloomington actually go out just a while ago about ADA compliance. It was actually a really good one. Danny Cowley got the porta potties actually to be handicap accessible in all the parks. Thought that was a really, really good story, and kind of a nice thing. But I wanted to ask the city manager, specifically, I see Sally here. She's been coming here since January, and with ADA compliance, it's very, as far as parking, if you look at the schools, like my son goes to Westwood. If you look at, I've been to enough schools. I used to work in the school system here. So all the schools like Westwood, right in front of the parking spots, it has no parking. And there's actually a big sign in front of the handicapped parking stalls that say no parking. But Chief Hodges can only do so much his job. But so, Mr. Verbrugge, I guess my ask is, was there a change order? So the original plan at Darrell Faru has parking over on the south side of the building, outside of the main entryway. So if you look at the way the schools are constructed, most of the parking for handicapped accessibility is not in the middle of a bus route, right? So have you gone to the planning division? Because Hodges can't really fix if somebody, even if you were to cite somebody, that the plan is broken. So have you gone to planning, Mr. Verbrugge? Has anybody gone to planning?
Mr. Mayor and council members, when the issue was first raised, I talked to both the police department and the planning department. And the feedback that we provided at that time is the planning division did not believe that there was a violation based on the plans and the layout that they had.
Right. So is the city obligated? I mean, if somebody does park there, is the Hodges, I mean, he can't really, if the planning, he can't really ticket them.
So,
Right. I mean, if the planning is broken, Hodges cannot ticket those people, if that makes sense. If there's a bus route right in front of handicap parking, Mr. Hodges, he can't do his job. He can't ticket the people because the planning is broken on that parking lot. Does that make sense?
I guess, Mr. Mayor and council members, I don't understand when you say the planning is broken.
Well, the parking is right on a bus route, right? And originally, is there a change order? Can you explain, was there a change order that moved the parking in front of the bus route? I mean, originally the planning had the not near the bus route. So
I don't know the answer.
So are you going to look into that for us? So
I've already-
Valley doesn't have to keep coming back week after week. Are you willing to look into this?
I've already talked to planning about it.
So,
Ms. Ness is unsatisfied or dissatisfied with our response.
so you're putting on Hodges now to enforce it? He can't enforce it.
I think he already said that Hodges is meeting with the state ADA director to discuss, and Hodges will bring in the city manager and planning and engineering if the ADA director says
Well,
you're violating the
yeah.
law.
And to be clear, what we're going to try to do is just make sure that the people at Success Academy understand what the rules are. It's right to the folks at the state who are the ones that responded to Ms. Ness about this, right? And just make sure they understand what they need to do and what not to do to be in compliance.
I mean, the ADA compliance issues is pretty straightforward as far as planning goes. But so you have looked into planning, is what you're saying. You've talked to planning.
4 months ago.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
And what did planning say?
2.5 months ago.
What did they say? They said this
I
is.
told you that planning said they didn't believe there was a violation.
So do you have that in writing? I mean, can you send that to Sally, that they didn't believe that there was a violation?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. So, because we have the plan, unless was there a change order somewhere that went on during the planning?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so if you can look into that too, just see if there's a change order that occurred. Because it looks like the plan kind of changed, but I'm just saying, if you look at the way the schools are designed, I've seen enough parking lots, they clearly have no parking in front of those areas. So that's pretty much what I'm asking. So Sean's got his hand up.
Well, I do just, Mr. Thiel, I do want to clarify Westwood, the area that is marked as don't park here is on the side of the building, and it's not where the buses queue.
It is,
The buses
yes.
queue in front, and there is a handicap spot there. I do believe that you can skinny past them and get into that handicap spot.
Yeah.
But that is there, from my understanding, from having kids and playing in that, that's a side entrance to the gymnasium that they were having issues with parents queuing up to pick their kids up after sports.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they put the signs up. It wasn't for school buses. It was for parents who pulled in front of that. So, and they have two different locations for the handicap parking.
Yep.
And again, the buses do line up at Westwood in front of a handicap parking spot. And as long as there aren't too many of them, because it's one car access to get in there, as long as you can get in there, there is enough room you can get in there. But if there's a number of them queued in there, that you may not be able to enter there.
I think
and I ran into the same thing at my daughter's elementary school where you couldn't even get into the parking lot. And it was, my kids are getting older now. My brain isn't working as well as it used to, off of 84th. And we did a curb cut, and there's to get traffic off of 84th there. But you have to get into that line to get into any parking spot there. And so, I mean, by the same definition, every one of those people parked there would be blocking access to the handicap spots because you have to wait in line to get into the parking lot itself. Again, that was a situation where the buses are in the back as well. So the buses are not doing it, but there may be parents.
Yep. Well, in the case of Westwood, like the buses park in front of that building there for pickup and drop off. You're right. You can sneak by those buses and get that.
As long as you can get in there, it's one lane access, but then no items. So, so yeah, I just want to clarify that for people because it's not the buses that were in that area that you're referring to.
Right. So
I appreciate you bringing this up. I appreciate your recognition of Danny Colley and the discussion that we've had about.
I just figured I'd come in, Sally's here week after week, and it's like, okay, that's why I want to ask. Planning. It's around planning. As I said, the chief can't do his job if somebody does
It
happen.
isn't about planning, Mr. Thule. It is about what was brought to us was allegedly a consistent violation of the rules that state that buses shouldn't be blocking access to a handicap parking space while they're loading and unloading children. That is the original complaint. That remains the original complaint. And that is a law enforcement issue. And that's why it's with Chief Hodges.
Right.
that's where it is.
Sure.
So everybody just needs to be a little patient, let Chief Hodges do his job
Yeah.
with the ADA director and the folks at Darul Farouk, and I'm sure we'll come up with an equitable solution. Because nobody here or anywhere wants to block a handicap parking space unnecessarily. That's
Oh, yeah.
not good policy.
Exactly. So yeah, ADA compliance is a big thing, I mean, I work inside of a school district and I know how big it is, so, but I think.
And accessibility to all,
Absolutely.
to our accessibility for all and to all. So for example, what Danny was doing for the redo of Bryant Park, a fully accessible park.
Right.
Make all of our parks accessible, right? Would you agree with that?
Right.
Like perhaps even the 9-mile corridor?
Right. Oh yeah, accessibility is huge, and I think that's great. What happened there? I saw the marketing the city did. But I hope the city. Obviously, that's a big thing. Having accessibility in the porta potties is huge. So
Very good.
either way, that's all I have.
Very good. Well, thank you much.
Good seeing you.
Council, nothing else? Very good. I would look for a motion to adjourn our listening session.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. We will head downstairs for our 6:30 meeting. Thank you all very much for being here this evening. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, really?